Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself today. It's always a pleasure coming your way to have a discourse on our national and our continent. And as usual, we are going to have a lively discussion today. As we always say, we most of the time use Ghana as a case study, but most of the things we discuss concerning the happenings in Ghana affect most of the African continent, and so to speak, Black people all over the world. So, but today, specifically, some of the things we're going to be talking about would have direct implications on what's going on in Ghana currently. But again, um, it can also serve as a case study or um, be a lesson for the other African countries as well. So all of us are invited to the table to have this discussion. And as usual, we don't entertain insults on this platform. On this platform, we don't argue, we discuss. We entertain dissenting opinions because we believe that we are not the only people who have the correct answers or the right answers to all the issues facing Africa, Black people, and the world at large. So we entertain dissenting opinions where we'll discuss and learn from each other so we can equip ourselves to change our communities and our environment. Again, creativity and inventions are not by the color of one's skin, but by an educated mind. Creativity and inventions are not by the color of one's skin, but by an educated mind. So irrespective of the color of your skin, educate your mind and you would have the ability, you would have the capacity to create and to invent. So do not limit creativity and inventions to the color of the skin, because it has nothing to do with that. Finally, okay, I'll leave that final statement, which Prof usually brings it up before we start, when he talks about the fact that these issues we discuss is not only peculiar to our environment. So I'll leave that for him to um, add that to his initial submission. So, Prof, over to you. Oh, you were muted. Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever people might be. Once again, it's wonderful to come together and discuss things that do actually affect the whole continent, as you said. Like you also said, we discuss Ghana primarily because that's where we have the facts and we can really relate to. But the whole issue is an African thing. It's not just the African continent, but the even in the diaspora. We need to understand that each society is not perfect. Every society got problems, and it is the people within the societies who are going through the problems that should solve those problems. Nobody is coming from anywhere to come solve our problems for us. Until we get to that point of understanding, we will always be looking for outside help. So that will be what I'll say for today. Thank you.
Oh, so that's all you got for today?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So today we have some interesting topics to discuss. Um, Give me 1 second. I'm trying to post this on Facebook. Dash 14. Dash 20. All right. Today we have a very interesting topic to discuss. Well, interesting topics to discuss. One of them, the first one we're going to talk about, I am so glad it's partially been resolved because it had to do with the lives of people. We're talking about the nurses, um, the strike of the nurses in Ghana, which was carried out for, I believe, 11 days straight. Um,
Mm,
this is my take. I am not going to look at it from uh what the demands are, what the demands happens to be. Are they excessive? Are they doable? Whatever. That's not my take. I am not going to look at it from that perspective. I'm going to look at it from the leadership angle. And I must say that I was, and I still am so disappointed at the way the leadership um, handled this issue. Um, I I I was not expecting that at all. I was not expecting that kind of um, attitude, posturing, and position, or so to speak, decision by the government, so to speak. I'm not trying to be what's the right word? Partisan here, because we don't discuss partisan politics on this platform. But I'm trying to be factual, like I said, looking at it from the perspective of leadership. Um, why was I disappointed? I was disappointed, deeply disappointed by the stance um, the government took. Um, you see, one of the responsibilities of leadership is to be able to negotiate, is to be able to dialogue. Any leadership devoid of negotiations and dialogue um, will be found wanting, because it's part of your responsibilities if you want to assume any space of leadership. Probably that of uh, the kind of politics going on in our part of the world probably may not have a deeper understanding on the power of negotiations and the power of dialogue. That's one of the most powerful tools of leadership, because most of the time when you have a vision, you have an idea, the most difficult part of this idea is to be able to sell that idea to your community for them to see where you're going. And so if you want to dispense leadership, you would have to learn the act of being able to dialogue and negotiate. But the posture of, I know most of these people are not, um, so to speak, the spokespersons of the government. I'm not even talking about the media, the so-called journalists, who took to the media and decided to insult and antagonize the nurses, which I thought it was very, very unprofessional. It was very, very okay, I reserve that word. It was not proper. I'm trying to be measured in my statements because I was so furious when I heard some of the statements coming from some of these media personalities, and I was like, do they even know their responsibilities as the fourth estate? You are the gatekeepers, the fourth estate. Anyway, we're not talking about that today. But I was disappointed in the government in the sense that when lives are at stake, one of the number one, number one priority of leadership is human life, is the protection of human life. That is number one priority of leadership. Cut it any way, anyhow you want it. If you want to dispense leadership, your number one priority is the preservation of lives. And I didn't see that being displayed in the actions and the attitude and the posturing of the government. It was as if they were at war with the nurses. I believe one time we spoke about the plights of the nurses here. That is not to say that we support the strike action. I'm not going to say we support the strike action because it resulted in death, human lives, loss of human lives. So we don't support that. However, that was the path they chose to air their grievances. And as leadership, immediately you jump into action by negotiating, by dialoguing, by discussing, by making sure you are able to come to an amicable settlement with the leadership of the nurses or with the nursing fraternity. But I didn't see that from the government. And for the fact that an essential a service provider to go on strike tells me how the government failed to handle the issue. I heard some people talking about the fact that they are essential workers. They're not supposed to go on strike, and and I was laughing. I had this discussion with a friend, and he was like, "Yeah, but they're essential workers. They're not supposed to go on strike." And I said, "Go
So
back and check."
that's why you should treat them like essential workers.
Okay, you took the words out of my mouth. I asked him to go back and check the rules governing the essential workers. They are the kind of people you would always make sure, you always make sure they have all it takes to execute their responsibilities and their duties. So if you're not making sure they have what it takes, it's I believe about 6 months ago, I had the opportunity of talking to a nurse in Ghana, and for that matter, a midwife um in one of the hospitals. I'm not gonna mention the name. And she told me they don't even have gloves to be able to help in delivering babies. And sometimes they don't have water flowing to one of the major hospitals in Ghana. And so they have to, in the middle of the night, they have to collect water in bowls and buckets. And that's what they use to deliver babies in one of the major hospitals in Ghana. And you call these people essential workers, and if they want you to better their service of conditions, you take up that posture. It's uncalled for, and I don't think the government displayed any sense of leadership in handling this issue. And that is my submission. Prof, you may want to.
Yeah, yeah. when this case came on the national front and it was being discussed, I never heard any of the journalists talking about the conditions that actually precipitated the strike action. All I heard about was that the conditions that they assented to was done by the previous government. And so we're living in a country and on a continent in which government is considered by on party basis. It is as if it is not a seamless agenda for the country. It is a party agenda. That was my problem. You could argue for or against the nursing strike, and I'll be with you, whatever your opinions are. But why is it that if this administration have agreed with the nurses or with any section of the economic force for a change in their conditions of service, you think that because there is a change of party in governance, you should stop or you should not discuss it? It should never be part of your agenda. That's a big no for me. And Anna, you remember when we were discussing the issue of the Tamale Hospital, one of the professionals who was discussing the issue was that the CEO and the doctors should not even be in the hospitals based on the professional advice they have been given. And for that, I supported the strike because I don't understand how we are giving incentives to every other sector of the economy, but the nurses and the midwives should wait. That is my problem. Whenever there is any society in which a so-called elite have the right to send themselves and their progeny outside for whatever the cause is, you are belittling your own systems. So when an MP is sick, he can go to London. When the president is sick, he can go to the United States. Those kind of stuff tells me that you will not care about the system in place for us, the ordinary people. So I was surprised that
Prof,
even
let
the nurses.
let me just jump in real quick. The issue of the nurses waiting was not the fault of the government, though. A
I will
lawsuit
not.
was brought
Yes,
against it.
yes,
So
I understood
I
that.
just want to.
But then it had given this current administration enough time to have planned for these nurses. Don't you think so? They went for a demand about a year and a half ago. Somebody took them to court. There was an injunction. They couldn't press for their demands. And now the injunction has been removed and they are pressing for them. And you are even refusing to negotiate with them. And people are talking trash about them. I'm surprised they went back to work. I am very surprised they went back. My main issue is this. My main issue is this. Nobody should be taken outside of Ghana for treatment by the taxpayer when our own systems are in shambles. Believe me, if the president and the people in government, especially the MPs, if they had to go to Konfanochi or Kolebu or to any hospital in Ghana, every time they have a problem, they will fix the problem. The problems do not affect them. And as long as these problems don't affect them, we are going to have a problem. I was having this discussion with my classmates and they were talking about, oh, this and this. I said, no. The main issue is this. When the vice president was sick, she was flown out at the expense of the taxpayer. When a president is sick, when an MP is sick, even the MP's children have the right to be taken to India, South Africa, UK, the United States. at the expense of the taxpayer. If the nurse is sick, the nurse will not be flown anywhere. So until our system is equitable for all of us, the powers that be will not change the narrative. So I was expecting the nurses to add this to their grievances, but they didn't. So for me, the issue is we need to change the whole system, not just some aspect for some people.
Yep, we need to change the whole system, not just some aspects for some people. And that's unfortunately how it's been in Ghana, especially when we talk about the health sector. And but I'm glad they went back to work because lives were being lost. Um it's and it's
And I am glad they went back to work, but let me come at you with this idiom.
mm,
Our elders say that if an old lady dies and you replace the old lady with another old lady, you just postponed an
funeral.
imminent funeral. How long do you think these nurses are going to be at work before another strike comes?
Yeah, so I want to rather use the opportunity to appeal to the leadership of the nursing fraternity to continue the discussion and make sure that the and it's not just them, but the whole of Ghana would have to begin to have this discussion and make sure that our health sector is brought to the standard where we can feel confident to go to when we're sick. Both politicians and the average person can have the satisfaction of going to these hospitals, because I know some people who are close to the or who have are even retired in the United States and won't really want to go back to Ghana and settle. But the issue
And
here
contribute.
is their health, the
I
health
know
sector,
people who have run back.
you know.
They
So
have run back.
it needs to be looked at. And I think this should give us the opportunity to look at the whole health sector as in totality, in order to avoid some of these things. But again, we're glad they went back. I'm happy. It tells you the kind of the spirit of that profession. You know, they just couldn't stand the death toll rising, so they had to compromise and go back, even at the expense of not trusting. Because I listened to one of their leaders. They don't The issue about the negotiation they had with the government was based on trust, because they tell them one thing, the next time they change the narrative, the next time they change, and they keep, I mean, it's like they don't even take them serious. Basically, that's what it is. It's like, we don't take you
Exactly.
serious, because you cannot tell me these. First of all, one of the flimsy excuses some of the people who are speaking, claiming to be speaking on behalf of the government, which I really didn't get, was the fact that the government just came into power. Governments don't stop at a certain point. It's transient. So if one government is moving out of power, that is why we have what we call transfer notes. You transfer your notes to the incoming minister or government or whoever, so they had to continue from where you left off. And so the fact that the government has been in power for less than a year, or for how long, it's not an excuse. It should not come into the equation at all. Because first of all, I've been following this, listening to some of the discussions going on, and these people met with you in January. You never brought up the issue of, it's going to cost us too much, so we are not going to be able to foot this. You never brought it up. You gave them the assurances and even asked them to wait. You had subsequent meetings. You asked them to wait until the budget is read. And then you come back and tell me that you didn't put it in the budget. So was it a deliberate action by the government not to foot the bills, or not to provide the demands of the nurses, or what? I don't know. And from every indications, following the narrative, the discussions they've had, and all that stuff, the interviews I've heard tells me that the government lacked leadership in this particular matter. And again, as I said, one of the first and foremost responsibility of leadership is human lives. And we know, you can't tell me that the government does not know that the strike is going to result in death toll rising, and people, I mean, not being able to receive health care, and on all that stuff. You can't tell me the government didn't know, so I want to plead with the whole of Ghana. This is an opportunity for us to start having this engagement. The health sector is one of the most important sectors of our economy, because we need to be healthy in order to provide or contribute our quota to the development of the country and the continent as a whole. So please, this needs to be taken serious. As Prof said, it is all because these people can fly out of the country to receive treatment outside. And one of the things that I well, I shouldn't be surprised about that. These are politicians playing with the minds of the people, because I heard somebody in this government saying the thing of flying people out of the country was going to be a thing of the past. The thing of flying government officials out of the country for medical attention was going to be a thing of the past, because they're going to make sure that the health sector is raised to a certain standard where they'll be confident in the health sector. And from the way they handled this the nurses issue tells me that they're not serious about doing anything about what is going on in the health sector. And it's not about the demands of the nurses. It goes beyond the demands of the nurses. It goes way beyond the demands of the nurses. It tells us as a people how important we take the health sector. Is it that important to us? If it is important to us, then we should set up and begin to pay more attention to the health sector. Because it looks as if government after government don't care about the people. They don't care about human lives. That is why I find it very difficult to believe, or find it very difficult to accept and to even see leadership coming from any of these political governance. Because that is your first and foremost priority: human lives, how to protect human lives, how to make human lives comfortable, how to progress society. And the foundation of every society is the human resources. And so if you cannot pay attention to some of these areas that are very vital to our health, then it tells me you don't have any leadership prowess, period. So again, please, let us make sure that we all put our shoulders to the wheel and bring this government or any other government after this to the table. Let us make sure we make them feel the heat to fix the health sector, because it is very, very vital. Look, every year we lose nurses to other countries. And these nurses are using the teaching the medical schools in Ghana as their springboard. As soon as they're done, they leave. As soon as they're done, they leave. Why is that? Because we can, and I was listening to one of the nurses who is currently practicing in Canada, and she said, look, it is not all about the money. Some of the nurses leaving, it's not all about the money, but sometimes their lives are even at stake because some of the things they need to protect themselves, to stay alive in order for them to work, they don't have them. So they are exposed to all kinds of serious sicknesses. And it looks as if nobody cares. And so to some of the nurses who are living, yes, they have the profession at heart. They really want to provide their services to make people better, to improve the health sector or to improve the health of other people. They love to do that, and that is their joy. But then they are putting themselves in a very disadvantageous position that will expose them to even shorten their lives. And so for them to see that joy of providing that service to people, then they would have to practice in a safe environment where they know their longevity is provided or their longevity is guaranteed based on the fact that certain essential protective gears are provided for them to safeguard their health. And so this should give us the opportunity to start this discussion. Let's bring the feet of the government to the heat. Let's bring it closer to the fire so that something be done about this health sector, because it's appalling. I read an article by one of the very industrious journalists in Ghana, where I believe the title is Health for Sale or something like that, where basically if you don't have the money, the cash and carry, you are going to die. Yes, I know they're trying to introduce health insurance, but to what extent does it help the common person who has nothing? And the point is, if we are willing to to be voted into government, and I'm not speaking to a particular party, I'm speaking to all the political parties. If you are willing to put yourself up to be voted into government, then be willing to see to the needs of the people. And the health sector would have to be very, very critical on your agenda. So please, let's not make this a 9-day wonder. It's not about just meeting the demands of the nurses. So even after meeting the demands of the nurses, then what else? Then what else? So let us go beyond the demands of the nurses. Let us go beyond that and seek to improve the health sector so that anybody from anywhere, any village can have access to good health care. Anybody anywhere in Ghana can have access to good health care. And so when our when COVID came, I thought that was gonna make a setup and reason. Because COVID, you couldn't fly out of the country. And some of the politicians died out of COVID. And it still did not knock anything out of their senses to sit up and look at the health sector. So it's hard for me to believe that these people are putting themselves up to be voted into power, irrespective of the color of your political flag, to be voted into power to serve the people. It's hard for me to believe that. Because fix the thing so all of us will benefit from it, including yourself. You don't even understand this simple logic. Fix it for all of us. So when there's a time you cannot fly out just as the COVID time, it'll benefit you and you don't get it, then I don't know. Then I don't know. So again, it brings me back to what I've been saying and what I've come to believe, that we no longer need politicians in our body politics in Ghana and in Africa. We need leadership, because the politicians, they have their tactics. They're thinking of winning elections. They don't care about the next generation. They don't care about purpose. All they care is about agenda and what do they call it? Manifesto. That's all they care about. Even the manifesto, they don't execute all of them. But we need leadership that will begin to think about the purpose, giving purpose to the human lives, that will begin to think about the next generation and not the next elections. Until we get that, we all gonna be here and we'll keep talking and make sure the right thing is done. Prof, if you have anything to add.
The fact that you brought that up is what I was about to discuss, that until the general population understand what is at stake, the few political elites will continue to play around with people's emotions and the blame game and the pointing of fingers. Because if the doctors in Tamale Hospital had an issue with the health minister, and within a month or two, the nurses in the country are going on strike, and we know that whatever we used to call an affordable healthcare system, because there was insurance, do not actually work. Why are we even fighting over this? Unless the general population understand that the healthcare system that they are creating for the general population is not the same healthcare system that the political elite go to. It's the same thing with our electricity. It's the same thing with our school systems. It's basically a system of the rich and famous having something different from the regular people. This is my issue. As Ghanaians especially, I don't know about all the other African countries, but I think it is basically the same thing. We take public problems and then we go and solve it privately. The school system is bad, I take my child to a private school. The public hospitals are not doing what they should be doing. I have enough money. I take myself and my children to a private hospital. The roads are bad, I buy an SUV because I can afford it. The electricity is not working, I buy a generator or a plant because I can afford it. The water, there is no water and sewage system. I create my own by digging a well in my house. You see, the only time you see Ghanaians coming together and really talking about something is when it is about fuel, because they cannot create their own refinery. That is the only time you see them coming together and talking about the prices are too high, this, and that. For the most part, you start paying attention. How many of these ministers have their wards in public schools, what we call Saito? None. Absolutely nobody have their wards, their children in public schools, even at the primary and the middle school level. Not to talk about the senior high schools. There are some very elite schools, so yeah, they decide to take some of them in there. But for middle schools and primary schools, I can assure you, no member of parliament has any of his or her ward in any of those institutions. And until the general population stands up and say, you know what, it's not just about voting, it's about making sure that the next generation is taken care of, and they agitating for it. If I were Ghanaians, I would have supported the nurses on their strike and say, hey, take care of this. It's not just even what the nurses are saying. This, and we should add our own grievances onto the list of what the nurses are asking for and force them to put it into the budget. They still have budgets allocation for MPs buying vehicles that are not made in
You know,
Ghana.
that budget thing is just a
It's a
hotwash
scam.
excuse. So I'm
Yeah.
not buying that.
So you come in and say we didn't budget. Why didn't you budget for it?
Because
Why didn't you budget?
it's not a priority to them.
Exactly. The issue is that they have some areas in which they respect the practitioners, and then they have areas in which they do not. In the Ghanaian terrain, teachers and nurses, especially the newly appointed nurses, are the most disrespected public workers you can think of.
And it was echoed during this time by the so-called media houses. Some
Exactly.
of these I don't even know if they're
Because
journalists
the
or they're
the,
just
the media
social
houses have
media
been
presenters.
they have been bought, and they have their political
Because I
affiliations.
heard somebody saying they fail their exams and they go to the nursing school and now they want to demand whatever. And I was like, am I hearing right? You know,
Yeah,
so yeah, you said it right. It's the lack of respect for that institution. And you see, sometimes that is where uh, intelligence comes in. So you disrespect the institution that takes care of the health of your people. Doesn't it tell you that you are really disrespecting the entire country?
yeah, they don't care. They
You
don't care.
know?
And
So,
and and being who I am, I'm not surprised most of these nurses leave the country, or most of the teachers leave the country, because everybody else wants you to be patriotic, but they themselves, those who have the powers to be the most patriotic people, do not show patriotism. So you telling me what to do and you not following your own advice, if I get a chance to leave, I'll leave. And while we are talking about it, these nurses were saying that their workload has dramatically increased because a lot of their colleagues left. And we have 2 or 3 years nursing trainee
okay.
graduates who are back at home doing nothing. Okay. And you will not even employ them to ease the congestions at the hospitals. We have hospitals that have no beds. We have hospitals that have no water. We have hospitals that have no electricity. And you had the temerity to insult the nurses? Really? You can't even say, you know what? We are in trouble. We are in dire straits. Come back. Let's sit down and talk. Really? That is just egregious disrespect.
Yeah. All right. So we'll talk about the nurses again. We're gonna follow this story and we'll talk about it again. The next we have on our list is the famous it's not funny, but I'm
It is
laughing
very,
because
it is very funny. It
I,
is
I'm
very,
I'm
very
I'm
funny.
laughing because it blows my mind where a whole nation is taken for a joke and no action has been taken. Do you remember? I've forgotten the story, but There was a fake, do I even call him or her a fake? They were a couple who, yeah, I think they qualify to be called fake because they were portraying themselves as a couple they are not. And they managed to find themselves to the White House. I don't know if you remember the story. It
Yeah.
was a White House dinner, and
Hmm.
they found themselves into the White House, took pictures with, I believe it was Obama, right? Took
Hmm.
pictures with him, and the backlash the government had, it was it was it was mind blowing. And this is a situation where somebody claiming to be a doctor from Johns Hopkins University being given, he lied his way through to the seat of power. And she was trusted with the position without verifying her qualifications. I don't even want to talk about the radios, the TV stations she worked at, or she was appearing on with her health shows and what have you. I don't even want to talk about that. But I'm talking about the seat of power. So my question is, how do they verify, or how do they let me use the word trust in the qualifications of people? Is it just because I said I am? You would have to believe it and take my
No, no,
word for it?
no, no. These people have what we call um uh, the words is not coming. They have vested interest within the governments who are their godfathers.
Mm.
They have godfathers within the systems, within the political parties. Let me tell you something. There is no meritocracy at work where we come from. It is purely whom you know. Whom you know is supposed to be after your qualification, then your
Exactly.
social network will help you get to where you are.
Exactly.
Whom you know and who knows you is everywhere, every society. But the basic thing, the basic line should be that you should be qualified for this position before the whom you know comes to. Where we
Let me
come from, that's
let
not
me
that's
let
not
me
the
tell
issue.
you a story. My last work I left, I met this gentleman who was a contractor. And anytime he comes in, for some reason, he takes liking to me, and he comes around and he's like, the first thing he said to me was, "Were you in the military?" And I said, "No." So we started conversation, and every time he would come to the building, he would stop at my office and we talk. And one time he was like, "Hey, there's this position. I really want to help you to get it. These are the qualifications. Do you have it? If you don't, I'm
Exactly.
going to help you to get the qualifications so you get the job." And just as you were talking, it just came into my mind. If it were to be in Ghana, he would say, "Oh, there's a position here. Let me push you in that position without even asking or thinking of my qualifications."
Because I like you.
Right. So like you said, I mean, who you know, it's important. It plays a role everywhere. But in a serious society, they will first think of qualification before who you know. And what blows my mind is, as of now, I don't hear any, I don't even know if government has taken a position on this other than just revoking her appointment. And this is a deception to the highest office of the land. And there are no consequences other than revoking the appointment.
Well, how about the person who gave the appointment without doing due diligence? Nothing
It's
has
part
been
of the
done.
consequences I'm talking about.
Yeah, nothing has been done to whoever gave her the appointment without
And
even doing due diligence.
does the Council of State play a role in some of these appointments? And
I
if they
wouldn't
do,
know.
I heard that some of, well, if not all, but some of these boards had to go through the Council of State. If they do they collect CVs? Do they collect credentials? Do they verify the credentials? And I don't think this is going to be hard to verify.
I mean,
It's just a matter of email.
people even did verifications online. People who are not affiliated to the government, who should not have any say in how this woman was hired or whatever, they could verify and know that she had no qualifications.
And there's a second one, a
Nana,
second doctor.
even if you are going to Home Depot to work, and you tell them you did this and you did this and you did and you worked here and you went to school here, don't they have a backdoor organization that checks your credentials?
Look, Prof, one of my jobs had to keep me waiting for months because they had to verify my secondary school education in Ghana.
Exactly. Me too. They will let you bring your transcripts. You will have to go and get it transcribed to meet the American standards. And they will go and check with your high school whether you actually came there.
And these are not
And
jobs where you are even going to decide for a whole community, you know? Much more somebody who is going to sit on a board that was going to take decisions on the health sector. I mean, it's sometimes I keep asking myself, these politicians, what goes on in their minds? What goes on
nothing,
in their minds?
nothing goes on in their mind.
And what is this thing about I'm a doctor, I'm this, and you know you're not? There's another one. Is it something Tanko computer who was also questioned and he arrogantly said he does not respond to idiots when people are trying to verify your credentials. Is that your response? You don't respond to idiots. So who is an idiot here? The one who is trying to do the right thing by verifying your credentials, you call him an idiot? And you who is refusing to let him verify your credentials, you think you're wise. So it's hard for me to believe and it's hard for me to accept that these people, again, I'm not talking about this particular political party, the NDC. I'm talking about the politicians, be it NPP, NDC, PCP, VWV, whatever. They don't care about the people. I don't see leadership in any of these. You know, somebody has swindled the whole nation. And I even hear at a point in time, even if he was not the physician to the president, or then he was not a president, even if he was not his personal physician, at a certain point in time, he prescribed certain medication or attended to him medically at a certain point in time. And we cannot sanction or we cannot bring consequence to bear. It blows my mind. And as you said, whoever gave the appointment, who should have done the verification and did not do the verification, and even the woman who portrayed herself to be a medical doctor. I mean, all of these people should face the consequences of their actions, but nothing is going on. And that is where I find it difficult to believe and to accept that we have.
You see, the most important thing that I know about sanctions is that there's a barrage of very bad news, very unnecessary stuff happening one after the other. So the people lose track of even what is going on. A lot of gossip, whatever you want to call it. It comes into the social streams every day. So by the time you even want to talk about this particular one, there is another one. Scandal. That's the right word to use.
Yeah, but
So
should it matter what
there,
scandal comes first?
exactly. That is why I don't personally, I don't see the necessity of, let's say, the Council of State and some other institutions, because they are the ones that should be asking every administration, what did you do with this? Is there institutional pushback? Are there people whose duty, their whole duty, is to ask the government questions about propriety? How many times have we talked about government contracts being given out unethically? Why does it continue to be given out to party members who should not even be in the bidding process? Because there is nobody, the DA, the AG rather, is maybe overwhelmed. And then the institutions themselves, the professionals who are not politicians within these institutions, have been politicized. Because the HR for the medical health director or whatever
The
should be
NHS
the
or
one, very good, should be the one hiring somebody to be the president's doctor or to sit on that board or whatever. But then, like I told you, these people's jobs have been taken away from them. There is a godfather who comes and say, take this person and put him there. And when you ask for background, maybe he was told to. The minister should have resigned on this particular issue if they had any sense of propriety. Okay? They should, or the president should have fired some people to serve as a deterrent to other people. But we are living in a society where the systems don't work, Nana. We are just talking. But the last time I checked, even with my classmates, it became an issue of this party against this party. That's what it became.
That's the part that I don't get. Yeah. And sometimes
That's
that's my beef with some of the journalists when there's an issue for them to discuss instead of them bringing neutral people, well, not neutral, but people, professionals who are going to speak to the issues. They bring political activists and they battle it out politically, and it doesn't make sense. You don't get anything out of it.
because your journalists themselves have been politicized. And I don't even care if you are political. Are you objective? That's my issue. Are you being objective? How do you tell me that a lady who doesn't even have a CNA certificate is a doctor, and you couldn't really objectively go behind and find out the credentials before you appoint the person? Really? And after you have he has swindled and made a fool of all of us, you just let her go? You don't prosecute the case?
Leadership, 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 leadership.
Well, we've said it here often and again. Everything is leadership. The rest is just effects. So what you are seeing is because there was no leadership. Somebody dropped the ball, and the person above that somebody who dropped the ball doesn't see anything wrong with the issues at stake and allowed that person to keep his job. You see, nation building is tedious, it is slow, it is systematic, and it takes time. And if you are not consistent, you are telling people that it is okay to be mediocre. And they will be mediocre They will cut the corners. We are actually applauding mediocrity and at the same time energizing them by making them successful. Why is it that there is a minister of education and our children are not educated and we are still paying that minister? Why is it that there is a minister of health? Our people are not healthy. He is still in place. He is still being paid. Why should he change?
Why should he change?
He has no incentive to change. There is no incentive. Whoever hired this girl should have been the first to be fired. Whoever hired this girl should have been fired without even any explanation.
So the press statement that came from the seat of power should have first of all made some heads roll even before announcing that her position has been revoked.
Why are you revoking her position? Why are you even revoking her position? What did she do?
Because people are talking about it. It's so much.
And that's exactly my problem.
No, she actually is a doctor, but people are talking so much about it, so we just don't want her. On that note, we would close the curtains for today's Analyze This. I want to assure you that next week, I know Prof might not be able to be a part of it. We are coming back with Leadership Academy, where we're going to be discussing some of these things. We're going to be talking about politicians, the difference between politicians and leadership. We also going to make sure that we have certain materials which will be beneficial to especially the youth, so we would be able to understand the difference between politicians and leadership, and leaders and leadership. Next week, Friday, we're going to start with Leadership Academy. And like I said, Prof might not be able to be a part of it.
It might depend on my work schedule, but I'll try. I'll try my best.
He would be a part whenever he has the opportunity to, because we need his gray to ice the cake.
To show that there are old men around here.
Not just old men, but people with wisdom, and
Thank you.
That's what you bring to the table. So on this note, we'll want to close today's the curtains on today's Analyze This. My name has always been Nana Osei Bonsu Jr. of Africa International Organization and Serto Leadership International, and my co-host
Koyewa Frimpong of Afriweek and Serto. We are here to serve.
Until then, we will catch you on the flip side. And tomorrow, happy Father's Day. I'm going to do a special dedication tomorrow for fathers. So I'll bring that up.
I don't want to hear any word called responsible fathers. No, to all the fathers out there. If you are irresponsible, you are not a father.
You're not a father.
My beef is that you only hear that word when it is related to men. When it is mothers, I don't hear irresponsible mothers anywhere. All I hear is Mother's Day. So nobody should come at me.
Mothers are supposed to be celebrated, though.
Well, don't come at me with that word responsible. I don't want to hear it.
All right, we'll catch you all on the flip side.
Okay, that's what's up.
See you next week.
All right, bye for now.
Happy Father's Day. Bye-bye.
Bye.